Okay, so I showed you just a little bit example of how you can change. We can hide the form button here, right? The clear form button in the code. Okay, so this is how you would usually do it. And so I'm going to show you a few more, especially with the text fields, the text boxes here. So how do you read the data from this text box, and then how do you process it, or how do you display it elsewhere, right? So typically you could say, this example, I could have the user type in his her name here, and when I click the submit button, instead of like we did clearing this form, I could have it so that it will print out a message down here, or just say hello and then name down here. Okay, we can do that. So the first thing, if I want to do that, then I need a place in the form here to be able to output the data to the form. Okay, I can't just display anywhere else. So typically you can put that into another text box, or you can put that into a label, right? A label like this. So it's common to have it output to a label if all you do is just display the text out here. But let's do with a text box first for now. Okay, so I'm going to add another text box. I can just copy this one here, and then I can just click on it and hold the Control key or Shift key, and then you drag it down here, right? Easy. And I'm going to expand this box a little bit wider, like maybe this wide. Okay, because I made a copy of that, and it's going to be called maybe like text box 1 because I renamed those. So as you can see, it's called text box 1 again. Now I want to change this to maybe text box MSG for message, or text box message. Okay, so I'm in TXT. I put the whole thing TXT message. Okay, and this is where I'll put the data to here. So in here, I will put the message saying hello John Doe, or whatever that name is, right? You put that in here. Or you can put just any message. It doesn't really matter. As long as I click the button submit, it should send that down here. Okay, so right now it cleared the form, which we don't really like. Okay, so again, this name has to be unique, so we call it TXT message. And if it's not unique, it will tell you that it's not unique. But since I don't see any errors, that means it's unique. Okay, so in the view here, you have all these different names. Just make sure that these names are important. Okay, you have to remember these names. You have to know these names in order to access those names in the code. Okay, so I have to know what this name of this field is. It's called TXT message, and I will access this name by using exactly this name here. I will type it in there, and the IntelliSense will help me as well. So it's really useful. Okay, so let's go in the code. And the code, again, if you double click on this button, or if you go into the code view here, you see that inside here, this is where I have the code here. So I'm going to delete the clear. Well, I'm going to just leave it down. It's fine. You can tap it down. And then instead of clearing the button, I just remove that for now. So inside here is where you will put your code. Okay? So again, only happens when you click on the button. If you don't click on the button, it doesn't do anything. It just sits there all day. So when you click it, then it's going to go in here and look for something. So the first thing I'm going to do is let's just, for now, it doesn't matter what the input is. We don't care. It's just that when I click the button, it's going to put a message, maybe like hello world, right, to the text box. So when you do that, okay, when you output data from the code out to your form out here, it's called outputting data. Okay, so when you output data, you would write it so that your code will look like A equals B. Okay, so here the name of that field is it's called we call it text message. So I go in here, I put in here the TXT. So notice that when I type TXT, it gives me 3 options, right? Because I have 3 of them. And then if you know which one you want, you can just use your mouse or your arrow key and select the one that you want. To save you typing, you just double click on it, and this is the one that I want. Or you can manually type it in there, txt message, and then you can narrow it down to that object. And if you want to, you just press the tab key. Once you select it, you press the tab key and select that for you, or you click it with the mouse. Okay, so remember that the text object or the button object or any of those objects, remember out here, text and so on, it has a field or property called text. Okay, this is where you put a text, right? You put like, for example, here, I want to say hello world. I want to put that message there. Want to write the code, click the button. I want the message to display here. Okay, so we will access this text property. All these properties you see on the left here, all of these, any one of these can be accessed through this object called text message here. Oops. Don't have that. This text message.
Well, if you just wanted to say hello world, why not just make it invisible, and then when you click the submit button, it changes to be invisible?
Yeah, you can do that too, right?
Instead of being able to immediately do it.
Well, you can do that. If you do that though, see, you don't have the luxury of changing the text. It's fixed at hello world.
Oh.
What if I want to change it to something else, right? Okay. So, but yes, click that's another way to do it. If you have the fixed text in there. Okay, so this message box, txt message, you type that in there. As soon as you click the dot, okay, you click the dot, it's connected to all these properties we saw earlier. So if you scroll up and down, you see that it has a bunch of all these. Of all of these here, okay, if you see it, access return, access tab, and so on, they should be identical to what you see here. Access return, access tab, access description, and so on. Okay? But this way here, if you use the form, and like AJ was saying, whatever you do here is fixed. It's the default value, default setting. If you want things to change dynamically, you do it in the code. Okay? So I only want the message to display when the button is clicked. And when I click it, inside this function or method here, I can access all of these information here, all these buttons, any one of these, the form, the field name here, the text boxes, all these buttons are all visible inside here. But I'm only wanted to change the text for that particular control. So I'm interested in the one that says text, right? I want the text to be different, or to assign with a different value. And to assign the value, you put the equal sign, and then you put a string, and we'll do this later on. String is always wrapped inside a pair of double quotes. Okay? You must put a double quote around it, otherwise it will not be treated as a string, and it will be treated as an object or something else, or variable name. And now you can type the word hello world in here, and you close it with that string. In other languages, when you end this statement, like in Java or JavaScript or other languages, PHP and so on, usually they require you to put a special character, usually the semicolon, to end that statement. Okay, but Visual Studio and Visual Basic, you can't use that. So there's no special character required other than your carriage return key. Okay? So it will know automatically that that's the end of that statement. Okay, so this one says, when I click on this button, it's going to look for an object called text message. And for this text message, I'm going to look for a property called text. The dot means reaches to the text property. And change its content or the value to hello world. And then that's it. It goes to the next line, nothing more, you end, and then you're finished. Okay? So if you save this now, and then run, just click start. Doesn't matter you in the code view or in the design view, it doesn't matter. If you click run, oh, I have it there because I think I didn't delete it. initially I had it in there. So if we go back here and remove that default, so you notice the default setting, right? It's always visible. So remove that. It should not be. It should be empty.
So if we wanted to do a clear form for like the first name and the last name, would we do almost a similar thing to Hello World, but where what we would want to replace the text as just the space, or is there a null character we can use?
You can, well, usually it's just a blank space. So right, good idea. So so now we have the form right display, and if I type, doesn't matter what I do here, it doesn't really matter, or click clear, doesn't matter. Only this button is the one I'm looking at. So as soon as I click on submit, you see that the text hello world is displayed down here. Okay, you can keep this clicking on it. It's always happening. You just don't see it. It replaces every time. Okay, because it's an event. Because right now the application is still running. It's waiting for an event to trigger until you click on it or you click elsewhere, right? So this is how you output data to the form. Okay, it's just by looking at the code. It's by assigning a value to an object on the form. Use the dot text or dot something. Okay. So this is how you add something. If you want to make it blank, then like AJ was saying, you could leave it like that. Okay, if you do that, then it's blank. It's an empty string. It would, like you say, it will clear the form if you do that way. But if you want to add text to that, then that's how you do it. Okay. So I added that word there. Not only that, if you want to add something else to it, we want to change the maybe what else do you want to change? If I look in here, and if you look at all these stuff here, you can change all of these here. So if you want to change like the color, okay, the color here is black. So the font has all these other. You can change the bold to true or false, italic to true or false, right? And the for color to you can change it so that it's not that, but you can change to a blue color. So you can use like any of these colors. You can get blue or just the web color, blue, black, green, whatever it is. So we can say in the code, we can say not only does it have the word hello world, we also want to change the color, right? So again, you can type in the text dot, not just color, but it would be like for color, okay? The foreground color, that's what it means. The color is equal to, you can't just say black, okay? It's not it. It's a text. You cannot just say that, right? So the color is a property. So you want to say reason why is because if you go here to the color, if you look in the foreground color, notice in here, if I choose like the web color for orange red, right? You can do that. You can do orange or blue, it doesn't matter. So when you change the color, you want to say color dot, okay, no quotes around it, color dot, and then you can change whatever it is. You can change to blue, black, whatever it is, you can change to blue. Okay, so this is an object of color. So all the colors are classified under the color class. So color dot blue, color dot beige, color dot something. If you don't do that, you can use a hex value, hexadecimal number. So let's just say color blue. Okay, if I save this now and you run it, and let's see if it turns blue. Okay, you'll see that it's blue instead of the default black color. So you can do, you can add multiple properties to this same text box in here. You can apply all of them to something else if you want. You have the whole, you have access to all those properties. You can change the font size. Right now it's defaulted to I think size 12 You can change it to something else. Make it really big, make it really small. You can hide it. You can animate it. Okay, you will learn about animation later on. You can move it around. You can spin it. A lot of stuff you can do with it. Okay, so this is to show you how you can output data, or you can modify the control. This is for outputting data or text to the control, to the text field. Okay, so let's do something a little bit different this time. Now, I want to be able to type a name here, first name and last name, and I want to output here message hello, first name, last name. Okay, so I'm going to read data from the form to someplace else, right? So again, the name here is called txt first name, txt last name. So let's just read the first name only. Same thing when I click the submit button. When I click the button, it should read hello and then plus something. Okay. Maybe before we do that, we just put the name. We just put the name from the input box and then redisplay again to the down here. Instead of hello world, we'll display the other name down here. Okay. So to do that, basically all you have to do is if you change this text message should be equal to the text box message of the first name. Okay. And then the dot text. Okay. So you can see, if you look at this, if the object name, the text box name dot text is on the right side of the equal sign. Okay, that means I'm reading the content from the form to someplace else. Okay, so if it's on the left side of the equal sign, that means I'm changing the content of that form to something else on the right. You see the difference here? Okay, so this is for reading the content in this form called first name, and then give that same content to the different object here in that field. Okay.
What if you want to add more text to it? Like you want preset text along with whatever's inside the first name box?
Yeah, you want to say hi.
Parentheses and a plus, or
Yeah, you can do. We'll do that in a minute. Great question. Okay, so if I run that now, nothing there. If I click, there's nothing there because it's blank here, right? If I put in, Joe. Now if I click submit, Joe gets put in there, right? Now this basically transferring what I put here to down here. Okay. And if I want to add the word hi Joe, like AJ was saying, then I need to do something else to that input, the output here. I need to add another string here. Okay, so I can say Joe Smith. I would say Joe Smith here, but now because I'm only adding the first name, it doesn't add the last name. Okay, so to do that, we can do something called, we can combine two strings together. Okay, we probably don't get to do that later on, but I'll show you anyway just ahead, so you know what that's like. So instead of saying just Joe, I can say hi, and then you put that. This is a text string, right? It's a fixed string. You put in there. It's not part of the field, but it's a hi and followed by a space, and then Joe, the first name. You want to attach those two together, so you use a special character called the ampersand symbol. Okay, this is called the concatenator. You concatenate, or you combine multiple strings or multiple text together as to a single string. Okay, so all of these will be treated as a single string. So now it will say, instead of just Joel, it will say hi Joel. Okay, so if you run it again, put Joel. Now it will say hi Joel, right? So you're adding another string to another string. Yes.
Are the two spaces before and after the ampersand important?
Let's see. In here, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, it is. Okay, if you do this, it thinks that it's a part of that that tool. But I think Visual Basic won't let you put that together. So as you can see, I can do that, and if I hit enter, it will automatically add it for you. So yeah, it's a special character. That means you can concatenate those two together. Okay, if you put outside of it, if you put inside the double quotes, then we'll treat that as a character. It's different. Okay, so you can say, "Hi Joe," and then if you want to say his last name, then you can use this again, right? After that, it's the ampersand again, and then you can put text, not first name, but now last name, and then again, dot text. I want to get the text out of that. So hi, and then first name, last name. Okay? And then if you again now save and run this, if I put blank here, which is a hi in the blank blank. If I put like hi Joe, and then here I put Smith. Hi Joe Smith. But it looks a little bit odd. Why is that?
No space between the names.
Yeah, there's no space, right? You typically don't put a space here to look like that, right? Okay, so you do that. You can either, when you name it, you put like the space here, so it has it. Or usually you go into the code here and you put a space between the first name and the last name. So how do you do that? This is an object. You need to put a string here. Again, this is a little bit ahead of time, but we'll revisit this later on. I put a string, single space, and then I combine the last name. So you put hi space, and then the name space, and then last name. Okay.
What if you wanted to make where it pops up as your name a different color than the rest of the text? Would I do and then the color command and then do the and with the actual command for the name?
Oh, the last name stuff?
Yeah, like if I wanted to make the name and the last name a different color than the hello bar.
That'll be a little bit tricky. Yeah, it can be done, but it's a little bit tricky. No, you cannot just say this part as a different color in here, because this whole thing, you have to apply the whole thing to this whole text box, right? So to do like the way you want to say is, you want to you have to do different. It's a little bit more complicated than you would think. But you have to read the whole text, and then you could check every text in there, and then that many character, you take it out into a different object, and then you change the color, put it back in there. So yeah, it's a little bit harder to do that, but it can be done. Okay. Okay, so if you put that space in here, then we solve the problem, right? We solve the problem with the this space. So if you put again Joe Smith, and then now you can see that it's really nicely formatted. Okay.
Maybe a comma.
Yeah, you can put a comma here, right? And then you put like here. So how you want the output to look like, you have to format that in the code. You can say hi, comma, Joel Smith, and at the end, you can put the ampersand, the exclamation mark. You can do that. You have to do all of that to make it nice. So it's a lot of work here just to display the simple text. So as a programmer, you spend a lot of time making sure everything looks great, looks good, just to show the little piece of output to the user to make them happy, right? Sometimes it will take all the effort to do that. Like AJ was saying, it will take you a lot of, maybe a couple lines of code just to make this third character a different color. Okay? If that's the way it is, then so be it, right?
Yeah, the stuff I'm used to, I mean, you can just like insert multiple different commands instead of one part, like I was trying to explain. That's all I'm looking to do.
Yeah. Well, in web pages, it's easy to do, right? You can just put like a different tag in there. It's fine. But in the programming, it's different.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I want you to know that when you read some data from the form, like from the text box, especially text box, to the code, is always going to be on the right side of the equal sign. This is the assignment operator. Okay. And if you are outputting some data to some object in the form, like the text box here, it's going to be on the text will be on the left side. So dot text equals something. Okay, if you read something to another object here, will be on the right side. So the text something here, dot text on the right side will read the value from the form. If you put equal to something else, it will change the value to something else. Okay, so that's how you read and write data. So again, the dot notation is as soon as you create an object like this in the form here, okay, then it has access to all these different properties. You can change all these in here. Either here, if you change it here, it's fixed. Not fixed meaning like you can't change it, like you can. It just means that when you run it, it will display based on how you set here. Whereas if you change in the code, bless you, then things will change only when the event is triggered. Okay, so later on we'll do a lot of coding more than design. The design part is not hard. It's very easy, as you can see. It's very flexible. You can design however you want to do it. It's the action behind it. It's the interactions, the processing behind it is the one that you have to think a lot about. Okay. So for example, if you run this, right, you notice that when I type something, right, it puts it down here, but I can also change it, right, which is not nice sometimes. You don't want to use it to be able to do that. You want to display it, but you don't want the user to change that output down here. So you can do is you can go to the control here, and you can set not the visible, but you set the enable to false. So when you set that to false, that means they cannot alter the content here when you run this. If I remember correctly. So if you notice, I cannot change the content anymore. I can still display the data, right? But you can't change it. Okay, so that's something you can set if you want to do that. And notice the white background. If you don't want to have a white background, just plain text like this, you can hide the background also. Right? You control that in here. You can go here, and then the back color. It's a window color. You can set so that it has a different color to match it. Okay, so that's entirely up to you. But usually, if it's something you just want to display outside to the form, then you probably want to use a label instead, right? So label doesn't have this import box. Label is just looks like this, and then you can display the label down here. So I could do that as well. I can add another label. Click here and drag it, control and drag it down here. Okay, and this label, we will change the name to not label 1, but LBL message. So we have TXT message, LBL message, and I'm going to go and remove the text out of that to nothing. So it's like it's not there. It's invisible, but it's there. Okay. And then in my code, instead of just that, I could copy this whole thing. Okay, and then I put right below it. And instead of TXT message, I want to add also to the LBL message. Right? So you can add multiple messages to different objects there. So it's going to go to both places, the text message and the label message have the same content. And we can just remove this for now. Okay. So if I save and if you run, okay, if I click on here again, Joe Smith, so you can see that they're both places, right? Because this one might look nicer if it is the way it is here. If you don't want a box around here, then use a label instead. Because the label can be used to output data, but you can't read data from the label. Whereas the text box, you can do both. You can read the data, and you can also replace it. I could have it so that when I click Joe Smith, it clicks submit, it can go here, here, or you can go back here, right? If I want, I can replace this and clear this. So maybe like when you click submit, this boxes should be completely wiped out. It should not be displayed anymore, right? Like you see, it's almost like the clear. Okay, so maybe when you clear the form, you can change this to empty.
But if you hit, if you did what you just said, when you hit submit and clear the text box, when that causes error inside the text box below the not show the name just to be empty since the other text boxes are empty?
What do you think?
I think that's what would happen.
Okay, so he's saying if I put Joel Smith here, and if I clear it, if I click and clear it, it would have a problem down here, right?
I don't know if it really did error, but I don't think it showed the name anymore since the
Yeah.
text box.
It could. It depends.
Unless-
Depends which one occur first.
I don't know if the things inside the code when you hit the button, if it does everything at once, or if it does it all individually by order, you could probably go and do it by a specific order. And then
Yes, the order is important. Okay. So here, if I clear it first before I put that in there, then there's nothing there. But if I display first, after that, then I clear it, then it's okay, right? So the order becomes important. Okay. So you could have so that when you type it out, the text, click submit, you want to read the data first. After that, then you clear it. That's probably the better way to do it. If you clear first, then there's nothing there. Okay, so you could put that in here. You can just say after you output that data, you put the first name dot text. You want that to be just blank. Okay, and you can also do with the last name. Last name dot text is equal to blank. Okay, so I clear both of those fields. That's what I'm saying. We're gonna read the text first of those names. Output to this message box. The same thing out to the label. After that, clear both fields. So we go in that sequential order. So it's a top to bottom order. So it's important how you place this in there. Okay, so if I save this and if I run this now, it will happen so fast. It's like everything happens at the same time. But really, it follows in that order. So put like again Joe Smith. Okay, but click it. See that it wipes out, it clears out, it adds the data down here. So the order is important. Okay? And then, so if you put that out in the top, then it's different now. Because when you run it, yeah, I can still put the name here. But if you click submit, there's nothing there, right? Because it clears it first before you add it to the thing, so those fields is empty. So that's really important and a good point. So instead of doing this, you could now, maybe also leave that down there. You can copy this and put it in the clear, right? The clear button, right? So when we have the clear button, so if you don't have it, you can double click on the clear form, double click it. That should be created for you, and you can put the text first name dot text equal clear empty string, and the other for empty string here. Okay. So if you have both of those, and if you run it, so if you put like something here, click clear, right? It clears it. Okay. So that's how you will clear the form. It's and then when you type something, and then we'll add that also clears it at the same time. If you don't want to clear it, just take out those two statements. Okay, are there any questions on this? How do you read data, and then how do you output data to the form? Okay, just to know that inside here, you just saw how I did the clear. You can do everything inside here in the button. When you click it, it can do everything. You can do your entire application if you want to, but that's not efficient. Okay, so later on you'll learn that you will probably break this down into smaller components, small pieces of code elsewhere, and instead of having one inside a single subroutine, it's really large. So you break it down like you do here. You break to a clear button. It's a clear button. It doesn't mean that it's going to clear it. You can make it do something else. We just call it clear form. But really, inside here, it may not just be clearing forms. It can do something else too. It doesn't matter what we do in here, and it doesn't matter what the name is. It could mislead people to think that, oh, you really click the form, and when you click it, it will do something else. But when you code this, you should be consistent with the name of these buttons. Okay? You clear it, then they expect to clear the form, and not deleting the data or something, right? So there is a difference when you do that. And if you do that, then chances are you will never get another sale of your product, okay? Because they will know. Okay, so that's that again. The dot notation is really important. Okay, and if you want to change the text content to that, if we change the background color, change the border, change the font size, you can use the dot text dot something equal something. Okay. So that part is there. I want to make sure I cover everything in the chapter 2, so you know what to do there. Okay, I think that's pretty much it in chapter 2. Okay, so for the rest of the class, you can spend your class to do the assignment, or you can do the exercises in the book, the walkthrough examples. I think I've on a page like page 30 something. It walks you through creating those like we just kind of did already. If you want to. So the text box walkthrough, that's what it was. So the text box walkthrough, I put that in the practice section, so you can practice those. How you change the color of your objects, like we did with the color of the text. A button walkthrough, how you can push a button and then have those different events occur. A label in the list box. So list box, we'll deal again with that later. List box is really important. And the multiple controls, and then I think that's about it. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is, let's just say that you are done with the assignment and you're ready to submit it in. Okay, so I did mention that in the class, but let me just stop this now and record a different video just for that.